We're starting now Be'ez Hashem Yisborach Maseches Peah Daf Aleph. Zog the Heilige Mishnah. We're starting the beginning Halacha Aleph. Eili Devarim She'ein Lehem Sheyur. These following things have no set amount. HaPeah, the remaining that you leave over from the field is called Peah. Bikurim, the amount that you bring. In Pashas Kisavai, it says that you bring Bikurim to the Beis HaMikdash. That means the showing up in Beis HaMikdash 3 times in the year. Yimilos Chasadim, Besalmud Torah, and acts of kindness and Talmud Torah, learning Torah. You eat from the fruits in this world. And the principle Kibbut Aveim, honoring the parents, Gemilas Chasadim, kindness, Shalom min Adam Chaveroi, V'Salmud Torah Keneget Kulam. And learning Torah is even against all the above, and it also has this special quality that you eat the fruits in this world, and they still save the principle for the next world. Okay, now we will see the Gemara on this. Zog the Gemara. Rabbi Yom Bar Levi Omar, Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Abba, they were sitting and asked the question, Why doesn't he say Terumah? Terumah also does have no set amount. And the Gemara answers on that, there is actually an argument in Perik Daled, if you have to leave over some. And you look in Perik Daled, and there you'll find 4 actually. You'll find there's a machlekes if you can make only a half, or you cannot make more than a tenth. So it's not everybody agrees that you can make everything Terumah. I mean, not everything, that's for sure not, but even 99% you cannot make Terumah. So that's why it does not enumerate Terumah between the ones that have no shear, because it does have a measure. You cannot make, if you make it too much, you cannot do it. You can make your whole feed Bikurim, but not Terumah. So this is another answer. A new answer that is actually Bikurim. You can say, I want all my fruits to become Bikurim. By Terumah, you cannot say, I want everything in this field should turn into Terumah. Hasiv, they asked the question, we still learn Peah, even though a person cannot say, I want everything here should become Peah. So why does the Mishnah say Peah has no limit? It does have a limit. You cannot say, I want my whole field to turn to Peah. No. The first stalk that you cut is similar to the flattening of the grain. So we know that the field, when you cut it and then you flatten it, that's when it starts to become obligated to separate Terumah. So here is the same comparison to that in this respect. Actually, once he cut the first stalk, then it becomes obligated to leave over Peah. Because the last is called Sadeo Peah, and if he wants now to make everything Peah, he could do it. So in reality, Peah, you could make everything Peah. There's no limit. The fact that you have to cut one is because that creates the obligation. But once the obligation is created, you can make everything Peah. Here, what causes the obligation? The flattening of the pile. And even after that obligation happens, you can still not say, I want the whole pile to become Terumah. So that's why Terumah is definitely not the same like Peah. Terumah, you cannot make everything Terumah. Peah, you could make everything Peah. And obviously, the first stalk, you cannot make it Peah because that is the one that brings the obligation. So it's not it's not considered that you cannot make everything, because that's the one that you just need to bring the obligation forth. So in the language, we could use that you can make everything Peah. The first one is just to bring the obligation, and then thereupon you can make everything Peah. You have to leave over. You cannot say, I want my whole pile should become Terumah or my whole dough should become Challah. Now the Gemara asks an interesting question. So the question is worded in an interesting way, but I think that the meaning of this question is, so we say that in semantics you could say this language that you could make everything Peah. Why? Because after cutting the first grain, I can say I want everything to turn into Peah. But how about if I can also make the first, after I started cutting it, and then I said the rest should be Peah. If I can also say the first stalk should also be Peah. So it's true that you have to start cutting. That's what we say. That's for sure. That you cannot. The fact is because they are Peah, because you need to start cutting. Okay, I agree to that, and that also does not diminish the fact that we can make Peah everything, because we don't count the fact that you need to cut, because that's just to make the obligation happen. Everything fine, everything agreed upon. But now there's a new question. How about after I did already the cutting, the first stalk, can I say, you know what, I want the first stalk also to turn into Peah? So the Gemara asks, if Shalom can you say such a thing? He was chayaves calls a day of Peah, we chayaves Peah. No. If that brings the obligation, that itself cannot turn into Peah. No, you can't do such a thing. Can't do such a thing. What happens if you cut the first stalk and then it got burnt? In order to cause the obligation to happen, so we say we cannot say the word Peah, that this should have the chalois of Peah, the transformation of Peah, only if you started cutting already. You cannot do that. It cannot become Peah unless you started already some activity of cutting. Okay, we understand that. How about you cut one stalk and then it got burnt? Can you right now say, okay, I want everything to be Peah? Or you have to cut another stalk first, and then you can say, I want everything else to be Peah. Because the first thing that was cut is not around anymore. It says if you cut a half a field and then you sold, or you cut and then you magdish, gave away for hegdish. You can give for the remainder and no problem. So v'hegdish laf tesarifu, it's very similar to that concept. What's the difference if you burn it or you are magdish it? You're giving it away. It's like you're burning it, and nevertheless it says that you could make the happening of Peah on the rest. You don't need a new Maisek Tzira, it could happen, no problem. Now a new question. What happens, the halacha says, if you did not, so we have to say, we know already a fact that you cannot make the happening of Peah unless you started one cut, or at least one stalk. And then, once you did that, no problem. You can say, I want the 99.99% of the field, the standing grain, should turn into Peah. How about if you finished everything, you cut every single stalk, at Omar Chazre Peah Lo, then the halacha is that you still need to give Peah, a new obligation happens here, and the new obligation transpires that we must leave over Peah by collecting the bundles. So you finished cutting everything, you made bundles. Now you're going to collect. So the Torah says you should leave over one bundle in the end of the field. Now he's asking a question. How about right now, when there's this new obligation that transpired, that the obligation is I should leave over Peah from the bundles instead of the standing grain. So now I want to decide, I want to use the first stalk that I cut originally. And we just finished saying that stalk you cannot transform into Peah. You cannot transform it into Peah. But maybe now, since obligation returns, a new obligation, that the obligation is now returning upon the bundles, so maybe I could change now the fact, and I could say I want the first stalk that I started the cutting with let's call that stalk A, I want to use that for Peah. I can make the transformation of Peah upon that stalk. Let us learn out the Peah from bundles from the Peah of standing grain. No. Can't do it. No. This stalk originally was not possible to transform into Peah. So even right now, when some new obligation came along, an obligation of giving Peah from bundles, still this fact stays the same, that the first stalk cannot turn into Peah. So we just finished saying that Peah has no limit. You can make everything Peah, right? We explained it in a very clear way that everything can turn into Peah. Okay. Abikurim Berachiah ein shir loy lamailon v'loy lamatan. However, Bikurim and Re'oyin have no limit. You can give even one date or one fig. Bikurim, Re'oyin means the shear that you need to bring a carbon for oilus re'iyah. You can bring it even if it's worth 1 penny. Peah has a shear. Now the truth is, Peah does not have a shear. You can give even one stalk Peah. You can finish everything and leave over one stalk for Peah. But we'll see soon that in the Rabbanon you need to give a certain amount of your field for Peah, 1/60th. So the Gemara is going to explain this. Is Tana Peah b'kur b're'oyin einam shear loy l'mav loy l'matan? The other Tana says no. Peah also has no shear l'matan because you can even leave over one stalk. What is the difference between these two versions, these two statements? We know that it's a fact. Everybody agrees that you should give 1 out of 60. So that's not a debate here. That with the Rabbanon, according to the rabbinic law, you should not leave over just one stalk. You should leave over at least 1/60th. So the other one that says it has no shir melamatan, what does that mean? It does have a shear. With the Rabbanon, you should give at least 1/60th. The Gemara explains, what is these two Tanoim trying to say? The one that says yesh lashir melamatan, what does that mean? So this guy he left leftover Peah. He gave less than a 60th. He gave less than a 60th. So we say Masha Nosen Nosen. Whatever he gave. Chazav v'hoysev chayev b'maiser at shosha yashlum. Until he finishes the amount that he needs to give. Chayev b'maiser, we have to give an introduction here. The halacha is Peah is potem and a maiser. You don't have to give maiser from Peah. But if we did not do the right kind of Peah, because we say that he must give at least 5 saw, let's say that's the 1 out of 60, because you have 300 saw. So 5 saw is 1 out of 60. And the person only gave 1 saw. Only gave 1 saw Peah. So then we say that saw is still chayav b'maiser. If a poor man decides to pick from that, he makes a box in the end of his field. He says this saw should be Peah, but he didn't give the right amount. So the oni that picks it is still obligated to give meiser, because it's not really Peah, because he did not give yet the full amount. It's the other way around. We say the other way around. He said 1 saw should be Peah. That's Peah, it's potter from meiser. Whatever he's going to add is going to be chayav meiser. Because midrabanan he should add, but that doesn't make it should be potter from meiser. So there's 2 opposite views on how to view this fact of the amount of Peah. If we say that yesh lashir, so saying that if you give less than 5 saw, we cannot call it Peah. We cannot give it the exemption of meiser. And the oni that picks from that saw needs to still separate meiser, because it's not really Peah yet. Because the Rabbanon wanted the person should give 1 out of 60th. The other one says ein lashir. Ein lashir means no, it's a nice thing to give, but even if you gave 1 stalk, it's Peah. So that stalk is potter from meiser. Now you want to do the right thing, you want to give more, okay. Whatever you're adding is chayav meiser. It's not really Peah, it's just you donating stuff. There's so many other things that you also have no set amount. What is that? Let's see what it is. It is the ash of a soita, the ash of a para aduma, the spit from a yavama, the blood from a bird of a Metzora. It can be even a tiny dot of blood. It's kosher. The Gemara answers, they only say a thing that if you give more, you do a bigger mitzvah. But all these above mentioned things, if you put a lot of ash of the paraduma in the water, or you put a lot of dust into the water of the soita, you don't get more schar. So that's why it's not enumerated. So this is the end of, we did now Daf Aleph and Daf Beis. Beis Hashem Yisbarach.